And with the new year just begun, it's an opportunity to look back on classics and look forward toward the future. Ahead of a new episode of Film Club today, we're joined by the presenter, Chris Deacy, to discuss all things film. So, Chris, welcome again.
Thank you.
And, you know, we're going to have a New Year's theme here. So I would say this is a time for new beginnings, journeys and transformations. And we've picked 3 films that we feel embody these kind of values here. But before we reveal our picks, we just want to know, are there any standout films you think embody these kind of ideas? And what would you recommend for a New Year's period watch?
Do you know, I remember last year we were talking about When Harry Met Sally, because it's right on that cusp, Christmas, New Year, and that sense of all the possibilities, what's going to happen. And so many films are predicated on that in every genre, rom-coms, even like, you know, Back to the Future. Groundhog Day is a good example. The idea of being, it's a metaphor, isn't it? Being stuck in time, but maybe we finally get out and start again. And that's sort of really what the New Year spirit is all about.
Absolutely. And are you ready for our film picks? So for new beginnings, we've gone for Dead Poets Society. So obviously that's a coming-of-age story of pupils from an elite boarding school. They're spurred into action by their unorthodox English teacher. So what do you think about this film and any of the messages that we could take away from it?
There's something so inspiring about this because so many of us can relate to those school teachers who perhaps were saying, do things the correct way, follow tradition. And you're thinking, oh, you know, we're doing this because we have to. There's no creativity in this. And then the spark, the teacher, played by Robin Williams, who effectively says, Mr. Keating, and he says, hang on, there's a new way of doing things. And suddenly these boys, who in many cases are told by their fathers, you know, you want to make lots of money when you're older, play it safe, you know, don't do anything deviant, don't do anything that goes against the ethos of the school. And then suddenly, of course, he's teaching them poetry and they become better people for it, but there's a price to be paid. So it's new beginnings, but it's almost like this is set in the 1950s, and you almost felt that it was sort of 30 or 40 years behind the time. So it's almost like today we recognise there's a Mr. Keating in every school, but back then he really was the kind of the person who didn't fit. And as a result, I think the boys sort of found that they were really conflicted by all the different scenarios presented to them.
Absolutely, this is definitely a film I really loved when I was a teenager. And for our next theme, obviously we've got Journey. So this one, it was recently released, its 3rd film in theatres, obviously, that's Avatar there. And it obviously kind of, I don't know, revolutionised, I suppose, the industry starting back in 2009. So there's no secret as to why Pandora is so captivating. So what was your reaction when the original first released?
Well, I remember this and I was totally blown away because James Cameron, who made this, had done Titanic, he did the Terminator films, True Lies. Every film he'd made, always Alien as well, Aliens, it always felt that he was doing something with the use of technology that went further than anything before had been able to produce. Now, the interesting thing is that, of course, he's now made 3 of these in a row. So it's almost as though he's just turned in his most recent years, the last 15 years, into making Avatar films. So it's interesting, he's almost like stuck in that groove. So it would be interesting to see if he then goes into some other sort of type of filmmaking. But this also felt, it was that time in 2009 when it was clearly a computer-generated image, but they looked and felt like characters, and that was integrated into the story with the notion of avatars. So you could see almost this seamless interaction between real world human and animated selves. And of course the technology has just got better for the 2 sequels that have followed.
Absolutely, and this film came out originally in 2009. I was a child then, but watching back, I still feel like it feels quite modern, it feels quite new. So how would you say it's kept that kind of magic about it?
I think the reason it has worked is because it sort of gets to the very heart, as do all good fairy tales really, about what is it to be human, because it's almost the human in interaction with something that is stopping the humanity from coming forward. And it's the ecological themes as well that feel now more prescient even than they did 15 years ago in terms of what is the future for our planet.
Absolutely, and moving on to our next theme there, we've got transformation. So we've gone for Robin Hood. He begins a noble and ends a heroic outlaw. So many films depicted this English folklore character over the years. So which one, personally, do you enjoy the best?
I have to say Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Kevin Costner. It is so wonderfully preposterous. I love the idea that they land in England, presumably the coast of Dover, and then, you know, sort of half an hour later, they're in Nottingham. And of course, it would have taken a bit longer in those days. But it is such a good sort of, you know, the sort of thing that Hollywood used to do in its day. And it was just a really good epic battle, really, with the story to undergird it. But of course, the new film that's due out later this year, the new Robin Hood iteration, The Death of Robin Hood, is effectively taking issue with the whole mythology. And it's also got Hugh Jackman, who, of course, is in the cinemas at the moment with the Neil Diamond film. I can't wait to see him in this. But it's a real darker version. And I think, from what I saw in the trailer earlier...
Which is playing right now.
Wow. Well, it sounded a bit... It made me think of Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven. It's almost like somebody looking back on their life and thinking, did I do the right thing? Because... what is the source material for this? You think of like Frankenstein, there's a clear Mary Shelley. You could have lots of different adaptations of that story, but there's always a source. But here it's based around a variety of folklore and legends, which means it's a more supple, more flexible story that can be told. But this one, I think, is going to be going far more introspectively. I mean, Kevin Costner was brilliant, but it wasn't the most, you know, psychologically nuanced kind of depiction. And that's not a criticism, but this film clearly is going to be going into far darker territory. It feels like it really could go where other Robin Hood stories have not dared to go.
Absolutely, and very quickly, we've not got too much time left, but looking ahead to 2026, how you've just done there, what's one of your favourite releases that will come out this year?
Do you know, I'm looking forward to Michael, the film about Michael Jackson, played actually by his nephew, Jermaine Jackson's son. I think that's due out on the 24th of April this year. The video looks spectacular. Devil Wears Prada 2 is coming out a week later on the 1st of May. But Wuthering Heights, so a lot of these adaptations of classic novels, but all with twists, often quite sort of darker territory. And it just feels like a year giant as well. So there's so much to look forward to this year.
Thank you so much, Chris. That's all we've got.